Have you ever had that feeling, where your smartphone just seems to know you maybe a bit too well? It recommends something you were literally just thinking about or suggests a connection. It feels, I don't know, almost like it's reading your mind
Oh,
sometimes.
absolutely. It's uncanny, isn't it? That predictive power.
Exactly. But what if it's not just really clever algorithms doing that? What if there's something, well, something much older, maybe even spiritual, influencing our digital lives? That's what we're diving into today. We're exploring this really fascinating intersection of modern technology, the concept of jinn, and what it all could mean for, well, for your spiritual well-being. We're framing it kind of like the battle for your soul in this digital age.
And it's more to say we're drawing from quite a mix of sources here. We've got Islamic tradition, of course, but also contemporary observations, different viewpoints on this. Our aim really is just to lay out these different perspectives for you so you can understand the breadth of thinking on this. It's quite something.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. The foundational idea here, Jen. Can you maybe start us off? What are we talking about from the traditional perspective?
Right. So in Islamic tradition, jinn are understood as beings created from smokeless fire,
Mm.
distinct from humans who are created from clay and angels from light. Critically, they're generally invisible to us, but they exist right alongside us in a parallel sort of dimension or realm.
Invisible but present. Okay.
Exactly. And the Quran gives us quite a bit of detail, actually.
Yeah.
Surah al-Jinn is named after them. It talks about their societies, that they have free will, just like humans. And their ultimate purpose, again, like us, mentioned in the Quran, is to worship Allah. Quran 51.56 specifically states, He created jinn and humankind only to worship Him.
So they have choice. They're not just forces.
Precisely. And that's key. There are righteous jinn who follow Allah's path, and then there are the malevolent ones, the rebellious ones, often referred to as shayateen or devils.
Mm.
It's really important to understand we're not talking about, cartoon genies or ghosts from spooky stories. These are considered real entities with their own existence and agency.
That really changes how you might think about things. So here's something to maybe just mull over. When you're scrolling on your phone, deep in some feed, are you just interacting with code, pure data? Or could there be something more, something unseen potentially interacting in that space too?
That's the pivotal question, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is where, for me, it got really interesting in the source is this idea that our technology, specifically things like computers, the internet, this digital realm, might actually be a space where jinn can operate more easily.
It's a fascinating and, for some, maybe a slightly unsettling idea.
Mm-hmm.
The rationale often connects back to their nature. Jinn are often described as beings of energy. Some traditions even link them specifically to forms of energy like electricity. Now, think about computers. At their most basic level, what are they running on? Binary code, ones and zeros, which are essentially just electrical pulses, on, off,
Yeah.
energy, no energy. So the question becomes, could beings described as being related to energy potentially understand or even influence this fundamental binary language of our machines?
Not like typing, but influencing the signals themselves.
Potentially.
Mm.
Influencing the flow of information, the data, maybe even the algorithms in subtle ways. It's theoretical, of course, but it's being discussed.
And it is being discussed. We saw, for instance, a Reddit thread where people were genuinely debating whether jinn could, travel through the internet, accessing information that's flying around digitally. Someone even pointed to a video claiming jinn could influence AI, influence bots, kind of subtly shape the content we end up seeing online.
There's this one quote from an Islamic discussion context that really stood out to me. It said, technology is not just a tool, it's a bridge between worlds.
Wow, a
Yeah.
bridge between worlds.
Yeah. Think about the implications of that. If technology is a bridge, what does that mean? Does it allow influence to flow primarily one way, from the unseen to our world? Or is there some kind of two-way interaction? It really opens up a lot of questions.
It absolutely does. So when that algorithm serves up exactly what you were vaguely thinking about, is it just incredibly sophisticated prediction? Or could there be, a nudge from across that bridge, an unseen influence?
A subtle guidance, perhaps.
It makes you look at those eerily accurate recommendations a little differently, doesn't it?
It certainly adds another layer to consider.
Okay, let's bring this down to earth a bit. The practical impact of technology on just our everyday lives. Maybe just take a second. If you're listening, think about your own screen time. How many hours a day are you actually on your phone?
It adds up quickly.
It really does. Statista had data back in 2023 suggesting the average person spends over 4 hours a day on their smartphone. 4 hours.
That's significant. And the spiritual question that arises is, What is that time displacing? Is it time that could have been spent in prayer, in reflection, maybe connecting with family, with Allah?
Right, and this leads to a serious spiritual warning that came up in the sources. The potential for technology to become almost like an idol in our lives.
That's a strong word, idol. But think about it. In Islam, shirk associating partners with Allah, taking anything else as a lord or protector, is the gravest error. And the concern is that if we become so reliant on technology for everything, for answers, comfort, connection, even just filling time, it can start to occupy a space in our hearts and minds that should really belong only to Allah. We turn to it first, almost instinctively.
It's always there, always available.
Exactly. It becomes the go-to provider, in a sense.
And then there's the more intense possibility we touched on, that malevolent jinn, the shayateen, might actually use this reliance. They could leverage our engagement with tech to subtly seek, well, not direct worship maybe, but to position themselves as providers of information, entertainment, distraction, essentially becoming minor gods in our lives through the screen.
It's a subtle manipulation.
Yeah, imagine it like this. Every time you unlock your phone, you're not just logging onto the network, you're potentially cracking open a door, just slightly, to the unseen, a space where influences you're not aware of might be operating.
So that content suggestion, that rabbit hole you go down, is it purely your click history? Or could it be influenced even slightly by entities wanting to shape your desires, distract you, pull you away from what truly matters?
It adds a real weight to just scrolling, doesn't it? What you choose to click on, what you feed your attention.
It demands a certain level of vigilance, a conscious awareness of what we're consuming and why.
But it's not all warnings and risks, right? There's another side to this.
Absolutely not. There's immense potential for good.
We can kind of contrast the binary code, the ones and zeros of our devices, with what some sources call the divine code, which is essentially embodied in the declaration of faith. La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah.
There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. That statement holds ultimate truth and power in the Islamic worldview.
Right. It's like the ultimate spiritual anchor. It reminds us where true power, true protection, truly lies. It's not in the device in your hand, ultimately, but in connection with Allah and following the guidance of his messenger.
And if we connect this back to technology itself, it can absolutely be a profound blessing when used correctly. The sources gave some great examples. Think about apps like Ramadan Times for tracking fasting, or the Quran Majid app giving access to the Quran in countless languages right on your phone.
Incredibly useful tools for devotion.
Hugely useful. They make practicing faith more accessible in our busy lives. And think bigger picture. Online platforms allow Islamic scholars to reach millions, sharing knowledge, answering questions, building community across the globe in ways that were impossible before.
Yeah, the reach is incredible.
We even saw examples like Peace Tech Lab, which uses technology specifically to try and prevent conflict and build peace in Muslim communities. So technology itself isn't inherently bad.
No, definitely not. But as I think it was the Islamicity article pointed out, it has that dual nature. It can be amazing for faith, but it can also easily distract us with, harmful or just time-wasting content if we're not mindful.
Intentionality is key.
So the big question then becomes, how do we harness it? How do we actively use this powerful tool to strengthen our faith, connect us more deeply, rather than letting it unintentionally pull us away?
That's the balancing act.
Okay, let's look towards the future now, because this is where things could get, even more complex. The sources hinted at, even warned about, a future where technology integrates much more deeply with us. We're talking potentially blurring the lines between human thought and machine processing. And for those who hold this view, potentially blurring the lines between human and jinn influence too.
Right. Some see advancements like quantum computing, with its fundamentally different way of processing information, as potentially amplifying the spiritual dimension. Could it make that bridge between worlds even wider, more permeable? The concern is that as technology interfaces more intimately with our consciousness, perhaps even our thoughts, it could create new vulnerabilities or avenues for unseen influence, maybe paving the way for greater spiritual challenges.
Just try to picture it. A world where your phone or whatever device exists then doesn't just respond to your voice or touch, but anticipates your needs, maybe even reads your thoughts, delivering information or experiences before you consciously ask.
Sounds incredibly convenient on one level.
Super convenient, almost like magic, but at what potential cost? If the boundary between your own thought and the machine's response becomes fuzzy, what does that mean for agency? for discernment.
And that's why the message coming through strongly from the sources is this need for constant vigilance. We have to be proactive in ensuring technology remains our servant, a tool we wield consciously. It must never become the master, dictating our thoughts, our desires, our connection to the divine. That distinction is crucial and maybe becomes even more critical as tech advances.
So it really comes down to a personal commitment, doesn't it? Are you listening now, ready to take that control, to actively ensure your devices serve your faith, your higher purpose, and not the other way around?
It's a choice we make every day with every interaction.
Absolutely. So if we were to boil down this whole deep dive, the core takeaway seems clear. Technology's powerful, incredibly so. But it's a tool. It's not our master. Maybe the next time you reach for your phone, just take a breath, a tiny pause, and ask yourself, what's my intention right now? Am I using this for good, for connection, for learning, or am I just letting it pull me along?
And practically,
Yeah.
use it. Use the amazing resources available. Learn about your faith online, connect with your community virtually, share goodness, glorify Allah through these tools. But stay aware. Remember the potential pitfalls. Remember the unseen world is real according to these beliefs. And know that your faith, your connection to Allah, is ultimately your best shield and guide through all of it, the seen and the unseen aspects of this digital age.
And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, something to ponder beyond our chat today. What if your everyday choices about how you use technology, what you click, what you share when you switch off, aren't just about digital well-being or time management? What if those choices are, in a very real sense, your active participation in that spiritual battle for your soul? Your way of defending your focus, your faith, in a world buzzing with digital and potentially unseen influences?
A profound question to carry forward.
Indeed. Until next time, stay curious, stay faithful, and perhaps keep a discerning eye on the unseen connections in our very connected world.